Most of us have been told at some point that we can't have it all. And maybe that's true, maybe it isn't. But what if the real question isn't whether you can have it all? It's whether you're brave enough to admit when something you built no longer fits. If you've ever felt stuck between who you were supposed to be, and who you're becoming, this episode is for you. Hi, I'm Krissy. I'm a stay-at-home mom to 2 little boys, and this is Mom's Guide to Finding Herself. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes not from doing too much, but from ignoring the voice inside of you that keeps whispering that something needs to change. Today's guest knows that feeling intimately, and she has built an entire life around finally listening to it. Laura Ora is a keynote speaker, a personal growth coach, and the host of the Gutsy Podcast. And her story is one that kind of just stops you in your tracks. She has lived through the kind of seasons that would make a lot of us fold. And somehow through all of it, she never lost sight of who she was underneath it all. How she held on to herself is what we're really here to talk about today. Let's get into it. Laura Ora, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. I appreciate you.
I am so excited to hear about your journey to motherhood because it's one that I think so many moms can resonate with, but maybe are afraid to take some of the next steps that you did. So before we get there, I want to first hear, who were you before you became a mom?
Wow, what a great question. Who was I before I became a mom? I was a graphic designer. I designed ads for, wait for it, the phone book.
The most exciting thing.
Literally the most exciting job you could ever possibly have. I was already a wife. I was a 21-year-old trying to figure out my life.
Yeah.
And I was still navigating, hadn't even began to think about unpacking my childhood or the things that I grew up with or the things that had shaped me into the responses and the reactivity that I was running my life out of. So I was a little bit of a mess before I was a mom, to be honest with you. Driven, very driven. I've always been very driven, but a bit of a mess, still navigating a lot of life.
Yeah, especially at 21. Like, who isn't a mess at 21? Never mind. And is that when you had your child, or were you a little bit older? Like, where's that transition here?
I was 22 when I had him, so not much older. Yeah. So my husband and I consciously decided that we wanted to have a family. We decided we wanted to do it early. We just felt ready. Got pregnant within 3 months. So very fortunate in that way. And, I became a young mom very quickly. And it's wild because I became a mom and a business owner at the same time. So we can talk about that if you'd like to. But yeah, I was a young mama, but it was my choice. I don't know. And it's kind of cool now. Fast forward, he's 18. Wow. So I'll be 41 tomorrow at time of recording.
Yeah.
So there's a whole new chapter of life here. It worked out the way it was supposed to.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah, I am on the other end of that spectrum. I'm 40 and my kids are 3 and 4.
Okay.
So,
all right.
but it's really interesting being in my seat and having friends just like you who had kids at a younger age, and now they're graduating high school and moving on. And it happened yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, they just had these babies. So it just puts it in a different perspective having my babies. But let's talk about your business here. So you decided to leave your job at the phone book and start a business while you were pregnant?
While I was 6.5 months pregnant, I put in my 2 weeks notice. Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, girl. I was like all the way at the end, and I was, it was just, I learned very quickly what I did not want. And I'll tell you what really made me say, okay, we're not going to do this, was I was so excited to go in and tell my boss. And it was met with the most disappointing response I've ever experienced. And I was like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Not cool at all. And it just changed the way that I felt going to work. It changed the way that I felt about the company. It changed the way I felt about the office. And I'm like, I don't want to be in a place that doesn't celebrate women and their life choices. You don't have to agree with me to be supportive. You don't have to understand why I want to have a child at such a young age, to be like, okay, cool. What do you need? It was gross. And I had already been freelancing on the side. So I was a graphic designer. I had a couple of clients and I thought, well, why not? Like, why couldn't I do this? Let me just try. So I took my vacation, like overnight. I called in. I was like, hey, next week I'm taking a vacation. And for a week, I pretended to be a business owner. Like, I got my laptop out from my couch. I set up file folders from Staples on my coffee table. Like I played business lady, and I just wanted to feel what it felt like to be a business owner and to be able to make my own schedule and do my own thing. And I was like, I think I could probably do this. Like, I like the freedom. I like the flexibility. This human's about to come out of me at some point. Like, I think we can do this. And I went back that next week and put in my notice.
Amazing. What an incredible idea to use your vacation to just live in it, just to feel what it might feel like. Now, you weren't just deciding to step into entrepreneurship. You were also starting this motherhood journey. I know reality and expectations are very different. Can we talk for a minute about what your expectations were of what this might look like with these two roles starting out at the same time and coexisting?
Yeah. Well, I mean, naturally, I thought I'd have it all together. Sure. I thought, getting clients would be easy. I thought running a business would be easy. I thought, I raised my brother and sister, so I know what I'm doing there. You know what I mean? Totally different game. I mean, it was a hot mess express. Yeah. I had no idea what I was doing in either capacity. You know what I mean? I've always envisioned myself as, fairly smart and intelligent and savvy, and, I can navigate all kinds of stuff and figure things out. And that was just such a thick part of life where I was like, I don't know if I'm cut out for this motherhood or business ownership.
Yeah. Wow.
And then you put the two together and I was like, it was wild.
Right. And one of those decisions is extremely permanent, whereas the other one, not so much. So tell me what the reality ended up being like. So you started the business. Did you have initial success while you were still pregnant?
I had some stuff get off the ground. I had success. Yeah. I mean, we can use that term loosely.
Absolutely.
It wasn't nothing. I'll put it that way. So, I added a few clients. I built out a website. Painfully, because I had no idea what I was doing. Graphic design and web design are not the same thing, by the way. Two totally different animals. I think I had some pretty okay success. And then, man, I tell you what, the universe was like, hold on, we got to add a little bit more in here. So my husband was the breadwinner at that point in our life. And I was working at my mother-in-law's house because I was really lonely. Like, I'm like, oh, I realized working by yourself, you're alone a lot. Yeah. And so I was working at her house. It's the middle of the afternoon. My husband worked 45 minutes away. And at 12:30, 1 o'clock, he walks through her door. And I'm like, why are you here? What's wrong? And he had a look on his face and he's like, babe, I just got fired.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, what? This was in 2007. So when the housing market crashed, he was an architectural draftsman. His job was not needed. So they fired, half the team in one go. And all of a sudden we had no income and a baby about to come in to the world.
Right.
And so everything just got very real very quickly. And I'm like, do I go back to work? Do I do this? Do I that? And like, we're questioning everything that's going on. And it was the beginning of a really, really tough cycle. I mean, he was in and out of jobs for years. I mean, his craft just was not necessary. When people were not building or buying, people don't need draftsmen. No. We went on Cobra insurance. I'm not sure if you're familiar with what that is.
Yeah. No, that's,
Yeah, that's a giant scam and a half. But it was either pay, at that time, $800 a month for insurance or, pay for birth outright out of pocket.
Birth. Yes.
Birth with a capital B. So, we're on this incredibly expensive insurance, which now actually fast forwarding, I'm like, oh, that was actually not too bad, but
yeah,
conversation for another day.
Right.
We're on this incredibly expensive insurance. We've got this brand new baby coming into this world right now. My husband has no job and I just started a business. What? Yeah. That's why I said it was wild. And it was years. Ultimately, we ended up filing bankruptcy. I talk pretty openly about that. Because I think it's important to have those vulnerable conversations about real things that people experience. We just couldn't sustain a brand new business and a no income husband at the same time.
Yeah.
It was rough. It was rocky. All the while, we're like learning how to, keep this human alive. And he was such a joy. He brought in so much love and light and smiles in a really, really dark time.
Yeah.
My husband lost his grandfather during that season. Our son he was the light. And he helped us through that. He has, he was just a little baby man. He had no idea what he was doing. He was just being himself, but he really healed us in a lot of ways.
Oh, that's so magical to hear. I mean, because not only are you going through all this and losing a job, losing all your income, you don't have a nest egg either. Like, let's remember you were 21, 22.
Exactly.
Like, there was no emergency slush fund waiting for you in the wings. Like, you're at the beginning of it all. And then to have this little baby, that's so precious to hear that he was a light in it. And I'm sure that's mixed with so many other feelings too. But I'm glad that you're at least remembering is the light that he brought to you through it all. Like, that's the feeling that continued with you. Now, how did being a mom at the start of this entrepreneurship journey impact that journey? I mean, I'm sure he wasn't just laying in his bassinet cooing while you were doing your work.
No, in fact, the first year of his life, he hated being anywhere other than in my arms. So I nursed for a year, which meant I was on demand, how that goes. And he hated sleep. He hated being anywhere other than with me. And so we learned how to co-create life together. We slept in the same bed. I know there's lots of, different opinions about that. I think you have to do and trust what's right for you in that season. For us, that worked. I can remember distinctively him nursing on one side and my laptop being on the other. You know what I mean? Like, there was just no other option. I'm like, okay, if we're going to be one person again, and I still have to do this thing, then we're going to have to learn how to like create this space together. So it was challenging to say the least.
Yeah.
But it ended up working. And I think that's one of the tough things, especially when you're in the thick of it, is like, it does work out. But in those moments, it feels impossible. It feels isolating. It feels like, how am I ever going to? And I think one of the biggest things that I had to keep asking myself is like, is this what you want? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, I had to want the business just as much as I had to want to be a mother. And I wanted both of those things. And something that's always been very, very important to me is keeping my own identity in addition to being a mother. Like, I've never identified as a mother first. And I know that sounds a little off to some people, but like, before I was anything to anybody, I was Laura. And Laura has goals and aspirations and desires and things that she loves to do. And I'm just not willing to sacrifice such a big, important part of myself to only be something else.
Yeah.
I will also say, though, that sometimes that stuff does, like, the time and the space for those things have gotten narrow. It's not always been as big. It's not always been as wide or as flexible. So I've had to put some things on the back burner, but I also consciously chose to do that, right? Like, when I went into this, I'm like, I want to be there for as many, if not all, milestones of my son as possible. Like, being there for him is so important to me. It's a non-negotiable, but also being a career woman is non-negotiable. So I chose a hard path, but I wanted it. and I put in the work, and my life reflects that now. Do you know what I mean? So there was a lot that I went into there, but I just think it's important to know, like, if there's a part of you that you want to still express, it might have a narrow window. It might have a smaller space, but don't let it go completely, because if it's in you and it's for you, you got to breathe life into it at some point.
That's so powerful, because we know when you have that gap, when you have that feeling, and that doesn't always happen. You don't have, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with you if you're sitting there thinking, I'm happy the way life is. Great. I am so happy for you. If you're there sitting thinking, I wish there was something. I'm longing for something. There's ways to make it happen. Now, I can heavily relate to the Velcro baby. And I want to speak to, just very quickly, because I'm a huge advocate for at least learning how to safely co-sleep, because there are science-based ways to safely co-sleep that I recommend. If you are pregnant, have a pregnant friend, anybody, just learn it, whether or not you plan to do it or not, because you might. And you're not going to learn it at 2 a.m. So just a quick plug for that.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the practicality. What kinds of things did you learn about becoming or being an entrepreneur with a Velcro child, with a Velcro baby, that our audience might benefit from learning?
Gosh, I gotta go back in the Rolodex of time here. I think I learned that I have to be adaptable.
Yeah.
I have to be adaptable. Like, I just had to let go of the expectation of my schedule and how things were going to go and how much time I was going to have to do things, because he made my schedule.
Yeah.
That's just how it was. And there were times where, like, I would have calls scheduled and he'd be screaming, or I'd be on a phone call and he'd wake up from a nap. And I think the other thing I learned is just own it as a human. Yeah. I think now, fast forward post-COVID, I think people are way more open to this now more than ever, but just saying, hey, I need a minute. If you're on a phone call with somebody or you're doing something, I got to grab my kiddo. I need to support somebody in my house. Like, I think just owning it instead of hiding it. So long women have been expected to be these, like, superior humans, which we are, by the way, but we don't need to be 24 hours a day. But people have expected women to be these superior humans, and also like not have any, like, distractions, not have any moments where they need a pause. Like, no, we're not doing that. We can do this and do that, but we also need to be in a second, like, in between things. But we also have to own that. So I think just having that honest conversation, being human about what's going on, asking for what you need. Gosh, I learned that very quickly, the hard way. You got to speak up. You got to ask for what you need. And if you don't know what you need, that's an okay ask too. Hey, I need something. I have no idea what it is.
Right. Let's crowdsource this.
Let's have the conversation with trusted people that have your back. The people that continuously show up for you. I know that that's not always a wide audience. Sometimes it's a very few select people, if any. So be very conscious about who you're asking for help with, and for who you're talking to about your challenges. There are really great people in the world. And if you don't have them immediately in your world, you can take to social media. There are groups, there are support systems, there are places that you can call and join in. So please do not do this shit alone. I think I did that for a long time. I did not realize that I had postpartum depression fairly severely. Until one day I was like, oh, I don't even know who I am. I don't want any of this. What is wrong with me? Like, why am I thinking about leaving? You know what I mean? Like, that's not, quote unquote, normal to feel. So I learned to not do it alone. That help is actually, asking for help rather, is a sign of strength and courage, not of weakness. So couple things that can come to mind.
Those are really important things. Another thing I think you have firsthand knowledge of is it being able to reflect on what's working and what isn't, and then making tough decisions based on what you find within yourself. Tell me about your experience with that.
Been quite a few of those. What's working, what's not.
Yes.
Making some decisions. Yeah. So I ran that business for 16 years. I loved it until I did not. Mm-hmm. And I'm a huge advocate for learning how to trust yourself, to listen to the cues of what your body's telling you, to feel the nudges and the pulls and the like, there's something there, mm-hmm. but we're afraid to admit it because what's on the other side of that is change.
Yeah.
Getting out of our comfort zone, having to follow through with said idea or shift in our life. And, I did everything that I wanted to in that business. I grew it to something fantastic. We had a lot of challenges along the way. We had a lot of success along the way. Yeah. I learned a lot of lessons. We had a lot of wins, like it was what it was, and it was time to transition. And what really kind of spearheaded this whole internal conversation was I had already been speaking by this point. Nothing formal and certainly not getting paid yet. Someone had asked me to speak at a women's event, and I was like, normally I'm all in. Yep, let's do this. And they asked me to speak about branding, and I could feel my body like shrink, like pull back, like there's something in me where I'm like, ugh, like that feels gross. Yeah. And I was like,
yeah.
What's going on here? And I sat with that for a little while. I'm like, I'm just going to get to know that. I ultimately turned down that opportunity because I just did not want to be known as a speaker that talked about branding. I didn't realize it yet, but I was finished with branding. Fast forward a little bit, our biggest client, their contract was ending, and I didn't want to replace them. I found myself not marketing my business on social media as much as I used to. There was no drive. There was no pull. I wasn't planning for the next year. Like it was just, and I'm like, it's done. It's done. And so I had a really fantastic epic meltdown where I admitted to myself that I didn't want to do this anymore. Called my husband. He came into my office where I was at the time. I let out just this huge wail of a cry. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he said, okay, what's next? And so that was July of 2023. I decided I was going to sell the agency. By that December, it was sold. And, and haven't looked back. So I've left the industry completely, and moved on to be a full-time public speaker and coach. So yeah, I'm no stranger to making gutsy moves, which is what my whole brand and my whole spiel is about, is making the bold moves that you can't stop thinking about, but keep putting off.
That's amazing. Now, not all of us can relate to realizing that a business isn't for us or transitioning, but we can all relate to that feeling of when something just isn't feeling right, when what you've built or what you've dreamed that you would be or how life might be isn't really meshing the way you thought it would. And we feel so many things around that. Some of it's excitement, but a lot of it is those feelings of like, oh, I should be doing this, or people are counting on me to continue with this or to be this certain way or to be this person. And that's hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a sticky place to be because now you're caught in between what you want and what you feel like you have to or should continue. And you're right. If a business doesn't relate to you, this can happen in any aspect of your life. Something that you're volunteering at, a relationship, a marriage, friendship, the job that you're in, an activity that you've committed to. You know what I mean? A party that you've said yes to, what you've ordered at lunch with a group of people. I mean, it can literally boil down to sometimes the most simplistic things in life when you're like, something feels off, or I don't like this anymore. Or, I feel like I'm done, but I don't feel like I'm allowed to be done. Right. Or my personal favorite is, I've put so much time and energy into this. How could I possibly rock the boat? Yeah. And that's where we get caught a lot of is, I don't want to change things, but also I'm miserable, or I'm unsettled, or I'm unhappy, or I'm unfulfilled. And we end up settling for things that are no longer ours, and maybe were never ours to begin with.
Wow. That's an incredible way to say it, for sure. I hope that you'll come back next week because we need to dive into this a lot deeper for the moms who are listening today.
You got it. I'll be here.
Great. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Let's do it again.
If this conversation resonated with you, share it with a mom friend who needs to hear it, because the best thing we can do for each other is remind each other that we're not doing this alone. And if you haven't already, hit follow or subscribe wherever you're listening so you never miss an episode, and then scroll down and leave a 5-star rating and a review while you're at it. Now, don't go anywhere, because in the next episode, Laura Ora is coming back and we're going deeper, because here's the thing. A lot of us aren't stuck because we don't know what we want. We're stuck because of everything we're telling ourselves about why we can't have it. The noise, the doubt, the voice that talks you out of your best ideas before you even get started. She has a name for it, and next week she's going to help you do something about it. You don't want to miss it. Until then, take a moment for yourself and remember you are an amazing mom just the way you are.